90 minutes after I stepped off a plane at O'Hare, I'm out here recording a pod. Kevin Sweeney alongside Brad Cavallero, and we are excited to talk week 2 of college basketball. Brad, I've had a frenetic weekend. Flew to Gainesville yesterday to cover Northwestern women's basketball. Didn't get to see a ton of hoops, then flew back today right after the game. Tried to catch up as much as I could. Northwestern got the win, so that was fun. But always tough missing out on some hoops. But I'm glad you're here to catch us up on anything that I missed.
Yeah, so basically my weekend was probably even more eventful than yours because Providence was about to lose to South Carolina. Luckily, they turned it around, or else I would have dropped dead. I mean, if we had to play George Washington instead of Michigan, that would have been it for me. No more podcasts, I'd be dead. And then they stuck it up against Michigan today, but whatever. That's playing with house money. But yeah, watched a lot of hoops this weekend. Glad you had a fun trip broadcasting that women's basketball game, and now we can dive into the past week.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Michigan. I think that's a pretty good place to start and talk about the Big Ten, Big East Challenge, also known as the Gavitt Games. Big Ten wins this event, and I mean, it started out with Wisconsin beating Xavier at Xavier, and it really just got worse from there for the Big East. I mean, their premier program in Villanova gets absolutely housed by Michigan at home. I mean, Georgetown beat Illinois. I guess that was a bit of a saving grace. I mean, Georgetown and DePaul were the two saving graces of this conference. I mean,
St. John's.
By beating Rutgers.
They killed Rutgers.
Okay, I'll give it to you. I mean, still, Indiana destroys Marquette. Nebraska destroys Seton Hall. Ohio State played a tight game with Creighton. I mean, I was actually pretty impressed by Creighton in that game. We might touch on it a little bit. I mean, Iowa wins the 2K Classic, so that's another good sign for the Big Ten. I mean, it was a really good week for the Big Ten, but what does the Gavitt game result really tell you more about? How good the Big Ten is or how bad potentially the Big East is?
Well, I think that obviously the Big Ten is better, but I still think that the Big East is bad. I mean, both can be true. The Big Ten can be better and the Big East can still be fine. These conference challenges, I wrote this up in an article on Rush the Court. The article got changed a little bit too much to my liking, but the premise basically being, these conference matchup, the ACC, Big Ten, SEC, all these conference challenges, the matchups are kind of arbitrary. They kind of seed them, but a lot of times they'll get mismatches like the St. John's Rutgers. There's not always a great tool to evaluate the strength of a conference between the small sample size early in the season, whatever. But when you have two leagues, the Big East had their projected two top teams go against who I had in the preseason, the second and the third best team in the Big Ten, being Indiana and Michigan, and just get slaughtered. Clearly the Big Ten is superior because both tops of the leagues went head to head, and in the Big Ten came out on top. But in terms of the Big East, I mean, there's been very few harmful losses for the conference. The worst loss is Villanova's loss to Furman, and Furman's, I think they're at like 117 right now, so they're right on the cusp of that top 100 threshold. Loyola Marymount also in that kind of 107-ish range. So those losses aren't terrible. They're going to show up as bad losses in March, but the fate of the Big East is going to be determined this next week in these, in-season tournaments. Providence couldn't pick up a quality win over Michigan, but Michigan looked amazing. But Georgetown obviously didn't pick up a quality win in their garbage non-conference tournament. But if your Villanovas, your Marquettes, and these tournaments can kind of right the ship and maybe pick up some quality wins, all will be fine. But if Villanova is going to lose to Memphis in the second round, and Seton Hall is going to lose to Grand Canyons, then we have some real problems on our hands. And now we can talk about the Big East as being a bad league. But right now, I would say Big Ten better, Big East still okay.
Yeah, I guess the question is, I mean, does the Big East have an elite team? Because
no.
I think everyone thought that Villanova was going to be elite. That is obviously not the case early on. I'm not going to sell all my stock at a Jay Wright coach club, but I mean, that's bad to lose to Furman at home. If you're Villanova, you cannot lose to Furman at home. I'm sorry. And you really shouldn't get 30-pieced by Michigan at home. And those two things should not happen, especially back-to-back. Marquette looked like the same old Marquette team we've gotten used to the last several years under Wojo against Indiana. I mean, who's the best team in the Big East right now? I think you have legit concern that there's not a clear top 20 team in this mix. I mean, Villanova is still your best bet. I think that's the concern more than anything is obviously you want the chance for those. You want a league where there's no bad losses, but you also want a league where you can get some great wins. I mean, if the best win of the season can be like a road win at the 20th ranked team in the country in conference play, that's a challenge come selection time.
Yeah, I think having all these teams look like 7 to 10 seeds, is as long as the Big East can avoid those bad losses, they'll still be able to pick up enough quality wins. They won't be like great quality, like teams like Butler grabbed a win against Villanova last year, which was this huge win. But if everyone keeps their head above water, the Big East can still survive. But from a kind of fan perception, just like a public perception, not having a top 25 team is enormous, and it's enormous black eye from a perception standpoint on the conference.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, and let's talk a little bit more about the Big Ten, because I think it's been a really impressive week. Obviously for Michigan to do what they did, for Indiana to do what they did. Indiana then loses to Arkansas. We'll touch on that game a little bit later. But for Michigan and Indiana to really set the tone for this league, when Nebraska looked really good, Purdue, Iowa, I think in the 2K Classic, a super impressive result. Well, what's a team or two you see in the Big East, in the Big Ten, who isn't getting enough credit for what they could be this season based on this early start?
I mean, you could go with Iowa, but I think Iowa's going to get some top 25 votes this week, even though, I mean, we don't really know how good UConn is at this point. They had a hot shooting night to beat Syracuse without Frank Howard. Then they beat an Oregon team, who then goes and beats Syracuse without Frank Howard. So it's hard to get a real gauge right now how good Oregon and UConn are, but Iowa certainly looked the part. And then Wisconsin picking up that road win at Xavier. I wasn't able to watch that game. I was at the Providence Holy Cross game. But I had expected – because in my preseason rankings, I think I had Xavier 29th and Wisconsin 30th. I think I had them exactly back-to-back. But Wisconsin picking up that road win at Xavier, clearly they're the superior team. And I think that they should definitely be ranked in the top 25 as well.
Yeah, I was super impressed by Wisconsin. I think the biggest thing for me – I still think the margin of error is really slim with this group just because they have 3 dudes who can get a bucket. And that's not going to work. I mean, they have Trice, Davison, and Happ, but I was just so impressed by Demetric Trice. And he can really shoot the ball. He can create. Allows Davidson to do a little bit more off the ball. And then, I mean, Ethan Happ is just playing all-world level basketball right now. And so when you have that type of guy anchoring your squad, I think you've got a chance to be special. When those 3 guys play well, they can beat anyone in the country. So I think I probably underrated Demetric Trice coming into the season, at least based on what I saw against Xavier. And as for Xavier, I thought Najee Marshall was very good in this game. Zach Hankins, I thought, was their second best player, and he was super impressive. Just protecting the rim, bringing a lot of energy. I think he should start for this group. Really helped key their comeback. I think just Wisconsin needs another dude to step up, but they're dangerous with that 3. I mean, I definitely underestimated this Wisconsin group in the preseason. Obviously, one injury could destroy it, but I think I underestimated that 3.
And then I'm not ready to move Ohio State in the top 25. I've seen a lot of people kind of suggest that, but
I voted by the way, for what it's worth.
Ohio State to the top 25?
Yeah, my last Rocket 25 on Thursday after the Creighton win.
Yeah, so the reason why I'm not sold right now is Creighton. In the preseason I had them as ninth in the conference. I think that they're probably a little better than that. But are they like a top 75 team? Cincinnati's maybe a top 50 team. They're a bubble team. So I mean they have these 2 nice wins over either bubble or NIT caliber teams. Kind of want to see how they match up against another NCAA tournament team. For a team that I had missing the tournament, it's one thing for a team like a Wisconsin who they beat Xavier at Xavier. Opinions on Xavier vary. I had Xavier near the top 25, but if you didn't have them anywhere close, at least Wisconsin's beating a team who's NCAA tournament caliber by most people's estimation, whereas Ohio State, maybe Cincinnati and Creighton are, but there's also a fair chance with all the roster turnover that they've had and NBA early entries that they kind of fall further than people expect.
I think for me with Ohio State, it's just like they have 2 road wins over top 75 teams. I mean, there's a very good chance that they already have 2 quadrant 1 wins in their bag. And I mean, I don't love doing like the quadrant system to put a team in the top 25, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find 25 better kind of resumes thus far this season. And I do get to the point where I have to start valuing wins. I mean, I think they have 2 really good wins. And I've been kind of confirmed what I thought they'd be. They could grind out wins. They have enough guards who can get you buckets late in games. I thought Keyshawn Woods was tremendous in that Creighton game, making plays late in the game. And they're definitely going to start 6-0. And they have Cuse in the Big Ten ACC Classic. That'll be a really interesting game at home for Ohio State. I think that's a really good chance for them to pick up another potentially quadrant there. I mean, I could see them staying undefeated through like into January, really. I mean, they have the Cuse game, they have a trip to Illinois that's kind of tough, and they have a neutral court game against it's not really neutral though. It's at United Center against UCLA. I mean, I could see them being undefeated through that stretch and go into a home game against Michigan State on January 5th undefeated. I mean, I've been that impressed by this group.
Yeah, I mean, I watched probably half of that Creighton game. I was flipping between the UConn-Syracuse game and the Ohio State Creighton game. I mean, Creighton had him. Creighton was up, I think, like 4 with 2 minutes left, maybe. And then
they definitely did.
Yeah, they really had him. I think it was foul trouble from Krompel that kind of changed that game a little bit. Although Creighton does have 3 really good centers, especially long term with Krompel, Frawling, and Jacob Epperson. But yeah, looking at the schedule, it's really. I remember looking at it in the preseason and thinking it was a soft schedule, and then now, I mean, maybe Minnesota's another game that they could be tripped up at. It is at home, but Minnesota should be a bubble team as well. But yeah, I mean, depending on your thoughts on UCLA, I mean, and then Syracuse, depending if Frank Howard's back or not, I mean, they could certainly be undefeated until their January 5th test against Michigan State.
In theory, they could have 5. They could have 4 quadrant 1 wins in the non-conference. If they beat Syracuse at home, Syracuse would be a top 35 for that.
That would be 30.
Top 30 for a quadrant 1. I mean, that's very possible though.
Yeah.
Top 30 win, and then UCLA, I think, would have to be top 50 for a neutral.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very real path to 4 quadrant 1 wins in the non-conference, which is a very good non-conference.
That's awesome. Yeah.
There were holes in the schedule for sure, but I think it's really good scheduling.
Yeah, they really only play one surefire NCAA tournament team, but getting those key road wins, really elevates you. And then who else haven't we talked about in the Big Ten? We touched on Michigan. They look really good, especially Ignas Brazdeikis and then John Teske. Teske's like stretching the floor from 3. He was very impressive. And Michigan State won by 80 today too.
Yeah, I know they beat. I mean, Tennessee Tech sucks, but
80.
Yeah, no, it's absurd. I think we should touch on Iowa just because we didn't really analyze them. I thought I was really impressed by what Fran did. They really slowed the game down, played in zone, and let their bigs thrive. I thought Kriener hit some big shots for them. Garza's really good. I was impressed because my thing has always been Fran McCaffrey's always just going to run and press and play that 2-2-1 zone press and try to force turnovers, but then turn it over a bunch. And yeah. They really adjusted. I was really impressed. I think that team looked like an NCAA tournament team. We'll see if that holds, but I like the recipe.
Especially Garza with his ability to space the floor too from 3. He was getting a lot of open looks, pulling big man away from the rim. I think Wieskamp kind of had a down game too, right? But Connor McCaffrey was really solid. Plays under control. makes a lot of nice reads. And then Tyler Cook is one of my favorite players to watch in the Big Ten. Handles the ball for a big man, makes plays, physical player. A lot to like with this Iowa team, which was the same case as last year, but it looks like so far that they've put it all together a little bit more. That playing zone too could help with the playing of the two bigs simultaneously.
Yeah, I just was really impressed by the adjustments because it finally looked like Fran McCaffrey was playing to his personnel instead of kind of trying to shove square pegs into round holes. And if Connor McCaffrey is going to be as good as he was in that UConn game, I mean, watch out. Because that's just the extra guard that they really needed just to handle the ball, make plays, hit shots. I mean, Jordan Bohannon gets in foul trouble. That was super impressive.
And then, I mean, Wieskamp was top 50 recruit, and then Mashi Daly's a solid player. I've always kind of liked him when I've watched him. Isaiah Moss, and they have 10 deep for the most part, 2 at every position. So I mean, that's certainly a benefit moving forward. But in terms of the Big Ten, I know one of our season-long prop bets was Ohio State finishes top 5 in the Big Ten, even though Ohio State could be better than we thought. Do you kind of have pause about, maybe everyone else is also better?
Yeah, I mean, the league as a whole looks really good. I mean, Purdue might win their tournament. It's halftime. They're leading Virginia Tech. I think Michigan's clearly a top 5 team. I think Michigan State's clearly a top 5 team. I think after that, I mean, Wisconsin could be right there. Indiana, Purdue, Iowa, Ohio State, Nebraska, even Northwestern has been fine. They've done what they needed to do. Maryland's 5-0. I mean, they've kind of been bad in a lot of games, but they're 5-0. It's been impressive. I'm not going to back off because I trust Chris Holtman. I think it'll be a tiebreaker anyway, so it'll be really close.
Cool. And then moving on to some of the other tournaments, we touched on the Iowa portion of the 2K Classic, but what were your thoughts on the other 3 schools? Syracuse, who goes 0-2, and then UConn, who picks up that very emotionally charged win over Syracuse, and then Oregon, who also kind of splits, losing to Iowa and beating the Orange.
Yeah, I mean, I told everyone preseason, and then I hedged a little, and I'm disappointed that I did. Building an offense around inefficient scorers who just chuck doesn't really work. I mean, the fact that O'Shea Brissett did not take a 2-point shot in the first 35 minutes of their game against Oregon on Friday. He's 6'8" and physical, and yet he continues to just chuck from the outside. That dude needs to go catch balls in the high post and just attack and draw fouls. It is so frustrating to me to watch O'Shea Brissett play. Tyus Battle is still the same inefficient guy. Elijah Hughes is fine. He was basically Frank Howard. I mean, Howard does. I don't even know that bringing back Frank Howard really helps because he's just going to do the same thing that the other guards are doing at probably a worse level. It's a bubble team. It really is. I mean, I have no other takes on Syracuse. They're a bubble team again.
I disagree a lot about Frank Howard not helping, even though he's probably the most inefficient of them all, because you get another guy who can handle and create. It's not so much about it's adding Frank Howard. It's adding another guy who's capable. Because I mean, Jalen Carey is a guy who kind of like a Colin Sexton, where he's good, but you don't want him on your team. I mean, he's a tunnel vision guy. He shoots a lot for for playing a point guard. Doesn't really look for teammates. But I think once you get him in a smaller role, I thought Hughes was excellent in both games of the tournament. So when you're rolling a lineup of Howard, Battle, Hughes, Brissett, I think now we're talking in terms of having more offensive threats. And I do agree that O'Shea Brissett needs to kind of move to more of a power forward role where he's playing at the high post. But I think that the talent is there, and they can even, once Howard comes back, roll out with kind of a 5 small lineup with the Dolezaj in there as well. Give him a different look, be even more versatile. But do
you have any trust in Jim Boeheim to go small?
Yeah, they did it, I think, against UConn for the last maybe 6 or 7 minutes. They're using Dolezaj at the 5 there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a little bit forced just because they needed a spark offensively. I just don't know that I trust Jim Boeheim to not play bigs, and not playing bigs hurts their defense because obviously guys like Sidibe and Pascal Chukwu are so important to that zone. I mean, I think they'll be fine. Like I think they'll make the tournament again. I just don't think they're a top 25 team, like at all.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rank them at this point. I mean, to go 0-2 like that, losing to two teams who I have out of my top 25 now as well. But the ACC will give them plenty of chances to crawl back in there because when making my top 25, after like 19 or so, I've really struggled in terms of finding teams to fill out my field.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I that's why I threw in like an Ohio State last week. I was like, they've just won games, and I think we should reward that. The final team in that 2K Classic was Oregon. I think what we saw from Oregon is what we'll see from them a lot this season. It's just one good performance, then a bad one, or one bad one and a good one. Bol was excellent in one game, kind of bad in the other. Their offense was a lot better. I thought Iab Amin was actually pretty impressive in this event. Was quieter against Syracuse, but he hit some big threes against Iowa. Really helped them against the zone. He can pass it a little bit. I mean, if he can be a 39% from three guy, that's a super valuable 3-and-D type. Kenny Wooten's good. I'm definitely not selling too much Oregon stock. I think I might drop them. I definitely think they're on a top 10 team. Like I started to move Oregon up because I didn't like anybody else, and I'm starting to realize I really can't do that. So I think I definitely have to drop them back to like the 15 to 20 range. But I think that's where I'm going to feel because when they're playing well, they're going to be dangerous.
Yeah, they'll be a lot better when Luke King is back too. I'll give them another wing score. I had Oregon 24th coming in the preseason, losing to an unranked Iowa team who I still have unranked for now. Got to boom out, but I'm not too worried about Oregon overall. I don't think I have any Pac-12 teams ranked because I moved Washington out and I never had UCLA. That's kind of another league that maybe they're missing a top end team as well, but it's kind of going under the radar because they haven't played the difficult games like the Big East has.
Yeah, that's an excellent call. Let's move on from the 2K Classic. Let's touch a little bit on Myrtle Beach. UCF comes away with that title, knocking off WKU in the final. Western Kentucky got a good, big neutral court win over West Virginia. Well, I honestly thought looked pretty good. I don't have any stock selling takes on West Virginia from where we already were with after the Buffalo game, I would say at least. Wake Forest looks bad. St. Joe's looked really good against Wake Forest and then kind of petered off afterwards. I don't know if that was more to say stuff about Wake Forest and St. Joe's. Valpo was fine. Cal State Fullerton has some dudes, and Monmouth is bad, like really, really bad, like blown out by Cal State Fullerton in the 7th place game. Bad. King Rice. I'm just gonna go a quick Mac take. Like King Rice should get fired this year, and he won't because his contract's due like 2022. But like he was never a good coach before Justin Robinson, and he won't be. He will never be a good coach after Justin Robinson. He got lightning in a bottle for 2 years, and now they're stuck with him for 5.
Yeah, he should have jumped to what? It was Duquesne was open and wanted him, but
UMass was interested as well. He could have gotten like $1 million somewhere instead of the 500K he's going to make a Monmouth. But I mean, the problem is his recruiting didn't jump at all. Like when you win 27 games in a row and you're on TV every game, 27 games 2 years in a row, I should say, and then you're on TV every single night, like because your guys are dancing on the bench. Like the fact that you can't go out and get like a bunch of 3-stars and beat out some A10 schools for recruits, and then just build and just play fast, play fun. Like that Monmouth team was so fun. They just shot threes, ran. Like they were super impressive. And he went out there and just recruited big after big, guards who aren't point guards. Just brutal recruiting. It's going to do him in.
Well, they had Micah Seaborn who got hurt, right? And then, they got some good transfers with Jalen Hornbeek. But, once those guys left, then Seaborn gets hurt and then wheels fell off.
Completely agree.
But yeah, and then
talk about the more important teams in this event.
Yeah. I was super impressed watching Central Florida tonight. Slow offensive start, but Aubrey Dawkins really played well. Taco Fall, super unique player, really did a lot of damage. I think Central Florida, had they not lost on that buzzer beater to Florida Atlantic, they would be sitting pretty, maybe even in my top 25. But I think that they're still the best team in the AAC. We'll see when Houston gets tested. if they can, kind of show that they compare with Central Florida. And then in terms of Western Kentucky, they're just so frustrating to watch. Their guards have such tunnel vision. Anderson never looks to pass, just looks to drive. Tavion Hollingsworth never looks to pass. They were missing open Charles Bassey and Jared Savage all week. But Savage is a really good. Bassey's really good. So they should be fine. Delano Banton played really well this afternoon. He has great court vision, great size. He's someone who could, really carve out a role, earn a lot of minutes there at that point guard position.
Once they get Bearden back, I think they'll be better. They'll wreck wreck Conference USA teams just with their athleticism. But I completely agree about the floor vision. They just got to do a better job moving the basketball and keeping it moving. I think last year with Darius Thompson, he did so many little things that they didn't realize, and they're missing that a little bit. But I mean, still come away from that weekend with a quality win over West Virginia. I think Rick Stansberry will take it. UCF, yeah, I think UCF is the perfect example of why you don't overreact to a game that you lost to one game that you lose. I mean, everybody sold their UCF tickets after they lose to FAU when FAU hits 12 threes. Sure. Should UCF get out rebounded by FAU? No. Should UCF, who is one of the better defenses in the country, give up 12 threes? No. UCF put up a stinker and FAU played well. But I watched them play Ryder the previous game and they looked really good. And then I watched them all week at this tournament and they looked really good. So maybe they just had a stinker and it happened. It's college basketball.
Yeah, you just really wish that you could avoid it, especially with the AAC. Not a ton of opportunities, but a couple quality wins. St. Joe's on a neutral, probably quadrant 2. Maybe if they emerge as the best team in the A10, that could sneak in the top 50. And then obviously beating Western Kentucky, which should absolutely be a quadrant 1 win.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't have a ton on the other teams in the event. Charleston Classic, we still have a final in that championship. It is still Purdue and Virginia Tech duking it out. But we don't want to reveal any scores because Brad is going to watch the second half after we record. But any takes on these teams? I haven't watched a ton of this action. I've been generally impressed by Purdue's ability to handle business. I thought, Bama's offense continues to be super up and down. Couldn't score for the life of them in their opener, and then they put up 90 today. I mean, Wichita State's up and down. Davidson got a couple nice wins. What are your takes?
Surprised at how bad Bama's been. Once they added Kira Lewis, everyone was, buying their Bama stock. Bama looked like they were approaching the top 25. I think I had them at 35 to end the preseason. But losing to Northeastern, close one with a not great Wichita State team today. Looks like Bama might be a lot closer to the bubble, which is, pretty surprising given their talent level. They need guys like Tevin Mack to get going. But they have so much talent with Herb Jones and John Petty and Dante Hall, and Kira Lewis has played really well thus far. So they need to kind of find their cohesion and right the ship, because the SEC really hasn't been as good as the preseason expectations kind of suggested either.
Yeah, I will say in fairness to Bama, Northeastern's a top 75 team. They play on a neutral floor. Northeastern's really good. They have a great guard in Vasa Pusica running the show. Jordan Rowland can really play. That's a really good group and really well coached. I think the frustration if you're Avery Johnson, if you're a fan of this team, really, is that Avery Johnson doesn't run good offense. They have games where they look great, and then they have other games because all they do is just run pick and roll. It's just pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll. Put the ball in your guard's hands, see what he can do. That's really frustrating. Especially when it's not working, that you can't make an adjustment. When you put up 52 against Northeastern, that has to be a concern. You have to do a better job switching things up if things aren't working.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Bad against Northeastern.
Yeah, and Northeastern was a team. I had them top 75 in the preseason. I think I sold my stock when they lost the opener to BU. Looks like maybe they could, still be the favorites in the Colonial and kind of sneak into that top 75 range as well.
Yeah. Any other takes on the Charleston Classic? Ball State was good in there at times. I didn't see too much of them. I was pretty much only watching these games during day basketball. So like I didn't watch a ton of Purdue because they were always playing at night. But I watched a bunch of Ball State because it seemed like every single of their games was the morning game. So I have some Ball State takes if anyone wants to tweet at me with them.
Yeah, nothing really on that. Just in terms of last week's results, still, Georgetown looks terrible. They escaped against South Florida today. Lost to Loyola Marymount, who's like top 107, I think. I think they come in at 107.
Eighth in the WCC. Like they're not good. I mean, they looked better to start the year, so like I'll give them a little credit, but they got handled, and that's a concern.
In a KenPom, they were like 107, though, right?
I think it helps to get a neutral court win over Georgetown, and they also have a win over UNLV. Like they've been better, but their KenPom to start the year was not good.
Really, I didn't think that you could move up that much with, last year's results still heavily weighted. But
I just know that like every single person was picking them between like 7th and 9th in the WCC. Unless KenPom is a really inflated view of the WCC, I don't think it's a top 150 team.
Okay, but so then that's the worst loss then. That's probably even a worse loss than Furman, who's already knocked off Loyola and then Nova. Georgetown does not look good. They could legitimately finish last in the Big East. And then in terms of Indiana, I just don't know what to do with them this week. After blowing out Marquette, and I had Marquette in my top 25, I was going to move Indiana at like 22-23. Then they lose to Arkansas. I think I can keep them in, but Arkansas is one of the bright spots of the SEC to this point. Played Texas really tight, and then knocks off Indiana with a huge game from Daniel Gafford.
Yeah, I think Gafford was really impressive. That's the one takeaway for me. I think the other takeaway is just this is always going to be a very tough matchup for Indiana. You're going to go on the road with a freshman point guard in Rob Finney, with young guards and Aljami Durham, and even Justin Smith, who's playing the 3. I mean, they only played 8 guys in this game. Like they don't have they're not deep to play Arkansas, who's just going to run bodies at you. So that's your first challenge. They don't have a point guard who's like well established. That's your another challenge against a pressing team like Arkansas. And then your third challenge is you're playing on the road in a really tough environment that was packed in Fayetteville. I mean, all those things made this game ripe for an Indiana loss. I'm not too concerned. I just think it was a matchup thing. I think Arkansas is definitely better than we expected. Gafford's been better. Isaiah Joe's been really good. Mason Jones has been really solid. So definitely an impressive performance for Arkansas. But I don't really go down on Indiana that much for losing a road game against a decent team.
Yeah, this is in the preseason. Arkansas was picked between 12th and 14th consistently. They are definitely better than that. I mean, between Gafford and then Isaiah Joe has been very good as a shooter. They've gotten great contribution from Mason Jones and Jalen Harris at that point guard position as well. So they're certainly a team to watch. Probably still a bubble team, but Indiana looks like a pretty strong top 25 team at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the question. I mean, if Marquette's really that bad, Indiana should house them at home. Like,
yeah,
that's the challenge. Like, we make like such assumptions on like wins based on what we think a team is, but like there's a very real chance that team isn't what we think it is, and then like you're screwed.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's probably it for last week, right? Do you want to move into the upcoming tournaments?
Yeah, let's do it.
Feast week.
Yeah, let's pick them.
All right, big one. Maui Invitational starts tomorrow at 2:30. The first game being Auburn and Xavier. Some of the other main teams in this field. Duke obviously has San Diego State to start, and then Arizona and Iowa State. Which, if Iowa State was fully healthy, I think Lindell Wigginton's going to be out. Cam Laird might still be out. That's a pickup now. A pick'em now with Iowa State's injuries between them and Arizona. In the late game, Gonzaga and Illinois.
Yeah, in terms of who wins the tournament, this is really tough. I think I'm going to go with Gonzaga hesitantly. I think Duke might have trouble with their depth playing many days in a row. I think Duke's young guys might get a little caught up in the Hawaii lifestyle. Tight game. I'll take the veteran group. Gonzaga finds a way.
As much as I like Auburn, I'm going to go with Duke here. their big threes has been fantastic to start. They destroyed Kentucky on neutral floor, so it's not like these guys haven't been tested away from home yet. And I think in terms of how they match up, I think Duke's size in the backcourt could give Auburn problems because Donjel Purefoy's still out, so you have Barrett and Reddish against guys like Bryce Brown and Samir Doty. And then in terms of the matchup with Gonzaga, I mean, Tilly's out, so that bumps him down a little bit, but I think that Duke's athleticism can neutralize Gonzaga's front court.
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, I think Gonzaga is well coached enough and experienced enough to force Duke to play in the half court, which is their biggest flaw. I would say is just trying to execute and forcing guys to beat you off the bounce and in man-to-man situations and 5-on-5 rather than just getting on transition and going. I think that's your best bet, and I think that's where Gonzaga can win. But yeah, Duke is a very fair pick. Let's just put it that way.
All right, tournament number 2. I think this is a new tournament, the Cayman Islands. Kind of the highlights of this field would be Clemson, who looks like probably the best team on paper. And then a lot of people were very high on Illinois State coming into the year. They're going to be in this field. Georgia's a team probably at the bottom of the SEC, but they have some interesting pieces, especially at the combo forward kind of position. Georgia State's a top mid-major program, and then Creighton from the Big East could be the second best team in this field. Maybe Illinois State, but Creighton certainly has impressed thus far.
Yeah, Illinois State hasn't really looked good. Creighton's looked pretty good. Clemson I haven't really seen any of to make a take. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Georgia State wins this thing. I mean, Ron Hunter's really good coach. They've got tons of guards. DeMarcus Simmons, Damon Wilson, Devin Mitchell. I think they find a way.
I'm going to go with Creighton. They've looked good. Clemson has struggled, I think, a bit. I mean, they haven't been tested so far, but I think between their kind of exhibition scores and then their kind of early bye games, seems like they've missed the losses of guys like Gabe DeVoe a little more than people expected. They have two really good guards, and then Amir Sims is a guy who I've seen draft Twitter talk about a little bit recently. But I'll go with the upset pick. Actually could be a bigger upset pick than you have in Creighton over Clemson and Georgia State and Illinois State.
All right, what about the Hall of Fame Classic? There's multiple Hall of Fame events. This is the one in St. Louis, I believe it is. Nebraska, Missouri State, USC, Texas Tech. This is one of those where Missouri State is so much worse than the rest of the field that whoever winds up drawing Missouri State in the second round gets a really big blow of not getting a chance for a potential quadrant 1 win of of one of the other teams. I think it's Nebraska, Missouri State plays in the first round, so not going to play Nebraska and get a quadrant 1 or 2 win. Definitely a brutal thing. I'm taking Texas Tech here. I think Chris Beard's a really good coach, especially a tournament coach. Nebraska will get pushed by the athleticism that Texas Tech has.
Yeah, I'm also going with Texas Tech. USC had so many injuries that they only played like 6 or 7 guys in that game against Vanderbilt. They looked okay in that game, but USC and Texas Tech are certainly better teams than Seton Hall, who we both have NIT or worse. I think you have them slightly outside the NIT, being ninth in the Big East. So Nebraska certainly looked good at home against Seton Hall, but I think they'll kind of come back to earth a little bit between the USC and Texas Tech potential round 2 matchup.
Yeah, that's a good call. Legend Classic, Temple, Cal, St. John's, and VCU. I'm going to go VCU here. VCU, hot start to the season. They've looked good. They've got athletes. I'm still not sold on St. John's, although that Rutgers game was impressive. I didn't watch as much as I would have liked to. I might watch some tape of that later tonight if I have some time. But I do have to pack. Let's go with VCU here.
I actually watched a fair amount of that Rutgers St. John's game, and it was Mustafa Heron, Marvin Clark, LJ Figueroa, raining threes. They were getting stops. Rutgers was missing shots, and then Heron especially, was hitting dagger after dagger. I'm going with St. John's. Can't get off the bandwagon at this point. And then I think that Temple VCU first round game is super interesting. That's a game that I would like to watch. Not sure what time it's at, but both teams, I think we talked about Temple quite a bit, and how I'm kind of higher on them than most. But Really like their backcourt. I think that they could maybe beat VCU in the first round and then test St. John's. And not quite sure about Marcus Evans' health. I saw that he was playing when I checked their box score, I think after their first game, but he was coming off the bench. If he's not fully healthy, this VCU team isn't as good as they're capable of being. But I'll go with St. John's, who I'm still putting in my top 25 at this point until they lose.
MGM out in Vegas, Arizona State, Mississippi State, St. Mary's, and Utah State. I think the biggest takeaway for me here is St. Mary's with Jordan Ford is just playing absurd basketball. I'm going to go with Arizona State, though. I think their size has a chance to cause some problems. They've been up and down early on in the year. They struggle with Fullerton, but Fullerton's a good club. I think the pick here is Arizona State.
I'm going with Mississippi State. I really like their backcourt, strong front court with Eric Holman and Abdul Adu, and I mean they have a ton of bodies that they can throw at you in the front court, and then they have some of the best guards in the conference with Quindary Weatherspoon and Nick Weatherspoon. I ranked them 13th in the preseason. I had Arizona State, I think 42. So for me at least, I think picking Mississippi State, kind of maintaining they haven't shown otherwise at this point. I think that's a safe pick here.
Very fair. Battle for Atlantis. This was the, I would say, the second headliner of the weekend. Virginia is the headliner of this tournament. Oklahoma, Florida, Wisconsin, Stanford, Dayton, Butler, Middle Tennessee State. Virginia for me, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I mean, Florida, I think, is the second best team, and I have Florida 24th right now. Even though they stunk against Florida State, I had the 19th the preseason. Playing on the road, I think it's fair to hedge and keep them in a top 25. But I have Virginia second. I mean, the addition of Braxton Key, I think, takes them to another level. I do think that this tournament has been, pretty interestingly seeded, where I think it matches like almost exactly what I would have had if I seeded it myself, which is kind of rare. I think Middle Tennessee is clearly 8, Oklahoma is clearly 7, and then I think you get into like Dayton versus Stanford, but not every tournament has clear and defined seeds. But I think Battle for Atlantis did a great job here.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It matters so much in terms of how the matchups wind up helping and hurting teams later in the season. The preseason NIT, Tennessee, Louisville, Marquette, and Kansas. After what we saw from Marquette, no chance I'm picking them. Do I want to bet against Kansas, though? Nah, give me Kansas. I think their guards are too much, and Dedrick Lawson has a big game.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. I think that they have the pieces to play, big or small. Grant Williams has been awesome this far. Big Admiral Schofield guy, and I think Jordan Bone is super underrated. Interesting to see if Lamonte Turner will be back. I know he missed the start of the season with some still recovering from shoulder surgery, I believe. He's a key piece of them long term. I don't think that they can beat Kansas without contributions from him, but I'll still go with Tennessee.
All right, Advocare out in Orlando, Villanova, Canisius, Oklahoma State, Memphis, Charleston, LSU, UAB, and Florida State. I think we're going to go with Villanova here, despite just how poor they've looked. If this screams like Jay Wright gets into them in practice for 3 days, and then they come out there and go nuts.
Yeah, I would pick them, but in that Michigan game, I mean, Gillespie is a nice player. I think he's probably better off ball or as the backup point guard. He's doing a lot of dribbling, not a lot of creating. Yeah, he looked really out of place, trying to run that offense. And then Booth and Pascal just had so much pressure on them. I think it's still going to take some time for some complementary pieces. One of the reasons I was so high on Villanova, having them in my top 10 in the preseason, was Joe Cremo. He hasn't really done much thus far. I think he had a preseason injury. He's wearing a face mask. Maybe that's affecting him. But I'm going to go with Florida State here. Looked great against Florida. They have 2 excellent guards in Trent Forrest and MJ Walker, and then Terrence Mann manning that small ball 4 spot. That's a lot of athleticism, a lot of talent there who can play big or small.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the right choice given just what we've seen so far in terms of the best team. I just think like I don't know. I just this screams of Jay Wright just going nuts all week. Wooden Legacy. This is a really like weird event given how every team in this field has looked so far in terms of the high majors. Like Miami's probably without Dajuan Hernandez. LaSalle's winless. Northwestern's handled business against 3 bye games, but they haven't played anybody. Fresno is 1-1, lost to TCU last time out. Seton Hall looked really bad against Nebraska and then lost to St. Louis at home. Grand Canyon's been fine. Hawaii's is very mediocre club, and Utah struggled with Maine, lost to Minnesota. As a Northwestern fan, this thing feels wide open for the Cats to take. I'm going to bet on them because I mean I have fan ties, but like to me they're the clearest like choice in my book.
I mean, there's not a single at-large team in this field. I don't think. I mean,
Don't sleep, Brad. Don't sleep.
Yeah, they're gonna. I mean, they could. Excuse me, but they could. I mean, finish it in like 11th and still get in if the Big Ten has this much success, where like every win is going to count, as something meaningful. So I mean, with the Big East down, A10 down, Pac-12, AAC all down, the bid's got to come from somewhere. So the Big Ten could be seeing 11 bids or something crazy. But this tournament, this is a tough one. I'm gonna go. I guess I'll go Northwestern too.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to say Seton Hall, but I mean Torian Thompson. When I watched the Nebraska game, he was just horrendous.
Did you see Willard's quote? He was like, "We're gonna look at pairing Thompson with a big man who's good defensively, like just to make sure we're covered." And I was like, I don't remember the last time a coach literally like just flat out was like, "Yeah, he's so bad on defense. We need to make sure we pair him with somebody." Like,
yeah, Seton Hall's like a year away. I think that they'll be fine next year. I mean, they don't have any seniors except for Enzi, who's a nice player, but he can be replaced. Yes, I think Seton Hall's a year away. I'm not in on Utah. I'm not really in on Miami either, and they don't even have DeJuan Hewells or DeJuan Hernandez. So, by process of elimination, it goes to your Northwestern Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, like Northwestern looked mediocre for 30 minutes against New Orleans and looked great for 10 minutes. Then looked mediocre for 40 minutes against American. Then they looked incredible for 35 minutes against Binghamton. Like, Chris Collins is still trying to figure out which lineups work, but I think the talent level is really good. Like, Vic Law's good. He's been playing great basketball. Ryan Taylor's just hitting shots. I mean, Ryan Taylor's in a more limited offensive role than I thought he'd be. He's very much like come in, shoot threes, don't do anything else. Guy I thought he might do a little more creating. Derek Parton's been himself, rebounding the ball, getting putbacks, playing with energy. Miller Kopp's looks like a freshman. Pete Nance up and down. AJ Turner looks really solid. Just plugs away, 6'7", can play the point. I think Northwestern wins this tournament.
Yeah, for the rush the court eliminator game, I was going to pick Northwestern, but then I said American is too good. They're ranked like 200th, so I went with Boston College.
Oh no,
they lost to like the 290th ranked IUPUI, which is, I mean, it killed me. So I'm down a strike already, which is bad. It's not good.
I've done a really good job with mine because I've used a bunch of like really bad teams, but I'm 2 weeks in and I'm feeling good. I got DePaul and Iowa out of the way in week 1 because Iowa's better than we thought. Vanderbilt and Cal in week 2. I'm using Georgetown and Wake in week 3 because they play nobody because they just finished their exempt events. But I'm almost a little concerned now because those teams are just like not good.
Well, yeah, so I went Wake and Oklahoma week 1. And this week I was Vanderbilt and Boston College. And next week I'm Georgia Tech and Georgetown. But
I thought about Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Georgia Tech has 2 games, I think both against sub 300. But
I was like, Georgia Tech is so bad they might lose anyway.
There are people who are picking like Duke and Kentucky. It's like, what are you doing? What are you? You're gonna get to conference play and be left with like Missouri.
All right, let's move it on. Las Vegas Invitational, I believe, is what it is.
Yeah.
We've got Michigan State North Carolina, Texas, and UCLA. I think North Carolina does it here. Roy Williams, I think this is where those playing those road games early on helps. They've just been a little more battle tested than these other teams. I think they do the job here.
Yeah, I think UNC is clearly the best team on paper. Big Kobe White guy. It is very strange that they don't even start Nazir Little. Roy Williams not doing himself any favors in terms of selling himself to recruits when the number 3 recruit in the country can't even start over your need to play a traditional center. But whatever, they're still winning, and I expect them to win this tournament as well.
Yeah, it is really strange that Nazir Little isn't just balling.
Because I mean, last year they started Theo Pinson in that same role. Like, why can't you start Little?
I just find it so funny, like watching people like Sam Vecini, who are like draft Twitter people who've been all over Nazir Little for so long, just like have an aneurysm because Roy Williams wants to play like a traditional big man instead of Naz Little, and they're just like, but Naz Little is like the prototypical 3-and-D creator type in the mold of Kawhi Leonard. Like, how are they not trying to play him? And I'm like, dude, like, it's Roy. Like, he's gonna play dudes. He's gonna play bigs, and he's gonna take time. Like, he's just not gonna play freshman right away. And we probably should have seen it coming.
Like last year, he went Barry, Williams, Johnson, Pinson, and May,
which was his most experienced group, though.
And they were really good. I mean, that was, they really finished the year strong with that lineup. So then he's like, well, that worked. So I'll do something different this year. And I'll do how I started last year with Garrison Brooks in there. And then when we lose a couple games in January, I'll remember what I forgot and put Little in there instead.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with your logic. I just think he's very much like a old guys play first traditionalist.
Well, at least he's not playing Seventh Woods over Kobe White. So
Seventh Woods is horrible. It is embarrassing how bad Seventh Woods is.
It's crazy. A lot of their role guys didn't develop. Like Brandon Robinson didn't seem to develop. Another top 70 guy.
Playtech looks good.
Yeah, he's in a smaller role now because they're playing Rayshon Black, but
Playtech. And he's from New York, so yeah. Let's pick some games that are not bracketed.
So what do you think? Pick 4 of these, you think, or?
Yeah. The game I'm interested in that you wrote down, the number 1 game I'm interested in is Houston at BYU. Houston gets a chance for probably a quadrant 1 win on the road at BYU. BYU's been fine. I think at home it's going to be really tough to bet against this BYU group.
I'll go with Houston. I'm not necessarily sold on BYU. They played Nevada okay, but I really like Houston with their multiple ball handler looks when you can play Dejan Giroux with Galen Robinson and you have Nate Hinton too, and you have some excellent shooters in Corey Davis and Armani Brooks. So I just really like the makeup of this backcourt, and I'll go with and then they also have the necessary size to bang with Yoli Childs at that center spot. So I'll go with Houston here.
Fair. You want to pick another one?
Yep, I'll pick DePaul versus Notre Dame at Notre Dame. I'm going with DePaul.
Cool.
They nearly choked away that game against Penn State, but I'm more optimistic on I'm more pessimistic on Notre Dame at this point than I am optimistic on DePaul. They've struggled with almost all their opponents. Already have dropped a bye game. So I'll go with the Blue Demons getting the road upset.
I think Mike Bray gets them going. Notre Dame finds a way.
All right.
I'll pick the next game, Washington, Minnesota. Washington's been a little disappointing since that good win against Western Kentucky to start the year. They've just been kind of bland, I would call them, on offense. Just they don't do a lot. At Minnesota, I think it's in Vancouver, so Washington will probably travel well. Minnesota, this is tough. I think I'll go with Minnesota.
And I'll go with Washington. They were destroyed by Auburn, but I think that they're I don't think that they're a top 25 team, but I think that they're, a solid top 30, 35 team, probably in the 8-9 game. I do like Noah Dickerson a lot. Their defense was really impressive in the second half against Western Kentucky with all their length, using Hamia Wright at the 4 and Dickerson at the 5. I think that they can, really kind of impact that game in a similar way and disrupt Minnesota's front court. I'll go with Washington.
All right, you get to pick the final game.
I'll go with Marshall over Maryland. We've been kind of waiting for Maryland to drop a home game, and I think this is where it finally happens. They survived against Delaware, survived against Hofstra, but I think they'll get taken out by Marshall here.
Yeah, I think I'll do. I was gonna pick that win for Marshall as well. I'll pencil them in.
Cool. And then by game upset. For me, I was narrowing it down to 2, Lipscomb and TCU, and Eastern Michigan and Rutgers. Lipscomb, I think they already got their magic by beating SMU a couple days ago. So I'll go with Eastern Michigan over Rutgers for my bye game.
Here's mine. Liberty knocks off Vandy tomorrow night. I think Vandy struggles a little bit with the pack line defense that Liberty will play. That's a tough system for freshmen that Vandy's going to rely on. Liberty's got players, they can make shots. I think Liberty wins this one. We should note Brad is 2 for 2 on his bye game upset picks. So
I got Radford over Notre Dame. Got Louisiana Tech over Wichita State. Yeah, you got to pick against these kind of young, inexperienced teams for these bye game upsets. They're ripe for the picking.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other takes, things we wanted to get off our chest before we wrap up this potentially less than 1 hour episode?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think. No, I don't really have anything. Oh, except Providence related. I mean, Mekhi Ashton-Langford is just the worst player in the entire Big East, and there are still fans who not only want him to play over Isaiah Jackson, which is mind blowing, they want him to play over David Duke.
Oh,
he has like this hypnotic hold on these people's minds. It's bananas. He is so bad, but yet he gets less flack from the fans than even like Cartwright got. It's unbelievable.
I love how he plays bad and his dad's like talking smack, and then you read the comments on the tweet, and it's like half Providence fans feel like, get out of here, he sucks, you should leave, and half hope he stays, he's great.
I saw mostly I really like Mekhi. He's gonna break out soon. He's so good. Don't worry. He's going through a mental, emotional. He'll get his confidence back. Don't worry.
Why would you ever comment that to his dad? If anyone knows what his mental issues are, it would be his dad, not a message board fan.
It's unbelievable. It truly is. He can't do anything. He doesn't. He's not a good defender. He doesn't have good court vision. He can't hit a shot, and he can sometimes finish at the basket, but he can't even get there because he's too busy just dribbling around. Because when he gets into the paint, he turns it over. And he's still being force-fed minutes. He's still getting 8 to 10 minutes a game. It's mind-blowing.
He seems like he's likely to leave midseason. Is that correct? Or do you think he sticks out the year?
Well, so his dad tweets, I've had enough. I've been on too many long car rides, watching him play, seeing how good he was, to see him play like this, yada, yada, yada. Cooley's killing him. He's holding him down. And then everyone tweets at him. And then he tweets, I had a conversation with the 3 most important people, Mekhi, Cooley, and God said everything's going to be all right. And then he tweeted something the other day where it's yeah, don't worry, he's going to have a breakout by mid-season. It's Cooley obviously called and was don't worry, Mekhi's going to break out soon. And he's okay, sure, I believe you.
Well, that's the problem is Cooley can't just run him off or at least push him out the door the way he might otherwise, because this is a mass rivals connection, right? I mean, they got Duke and Reeves, which means they'll still be okay, but you don't want to alienate in any way the best, the best AAU program that Providence has connections with right now. nor do you want to alienate the family that has another top recruit.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath on getting DeMar Langford. Some Providence fans were like, well, we got to be nice to him so we get DeMar Langford. Like, number one, you don't know how good DeMar Langford's going to be. He's top 80 right now. You don't know if he's going to come to PC. He might not want to come just because he wants to go somewhere different than his brother and not be overshadowed. And three, we're not potentially losing games or playing worse for the hope of getting a kid's younger brother who the older brother was ranked much higher and was a total bust.
And I also don't think like playing Makai 20 minutes a night, just like force him out on the field, like gets you DeMar. It's like, oh man, he's developed him so well that he's like a 6 point a game player in 20 minutes a night as a top 50 recruit. That like we have to send him there, you know?
And they've already gotten an official visit from Earl Timberlake, who's a top 30 player in 2020. And they're worried about the top 90 player.
Yeah, it ain't good. Meanwhile, Siena has absolutely no athletes, but they play hard. They're fun to watch because they play hard, even though they have no talent.
Yeah, I thought that they were going to keep it closer with Holy Cross, but those are
shot it bad.
Yeah, those are both pretty solid teams. I mean, I saw them both play in person. They're not that bad. I mean,
Siena's good.
Well, they played Providence pretty tough. They've hit 3-pointers in every game except for this most recent game, right?
That was the problem. Was it like Siena has no scoring talent? They just have like a solid point guard and a bunch of shooters. So like if the shooters can't make shots, they're screwed.
Yeah, but, I mean they'll be fine. Like they'll go 9-9, 10-8 in the MAC. You think?
Yeah, 9-9 would be great. I mean, if they go 9-9 in the MAC, I will be happy as a clam. I mean, build the statue as far as I'm concerned. You lose your top 6 scorers from an 8-win team, and you go out and you win 9 MAC games in the next year. Like that's absurd.
And then in terms of the whole Mass Rivals connection, I mean, Makai was the first like Mass Rivals target that we actually got for like Cooley's whole tenure. Like we missed on Caleb Joseph, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Missed on Wendy and Gabriel, who they really wanted and kind of blew up. Will be Sabiti. I think they backed off to take Makai. So every guy who they kind of went. There are definitely more guys, but just off the top of my head, I can't really think of them. And then Akuk's probably not coming. So, I mean, we got Reeves and Duke, but it's not like something that we need to. It's not like our whole program is dependent on these guys.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, if you like you work so hard to finally get Duke and Reeves, and Ashton Langford, if you then burn that bridge. Like the year later, that kind of sucks. Not saying it would burn the bridge, but if it does burn the bridge, that sucks.
No, as long as Duke and Reeves play well, then Mikhail's be forgotten about. There's some Mass Rivals,
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's wrap this one up. Brad, thanks for dealing with my delays in transit after an overtime win. Everyone else, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the pod. Give us a nice review. 5-star rating. That would be great. Keep following us on Twitter. Keep following our written content. I hope to have some stuff this week. I'm traveling again. I leave tomorrow night for Texas for Thanksgiving break, visiting some family. Might check out some college basketball in the San Antonio area. We hope to, but if we don't, we don't. I'll be watching Maui. I'll be watching everything. Brad will be watching plenty of games as well. Enjoy your holiday, and I hope you have a great night.